Yeah, this was a proposal that got floated around on Twitter yesterday. It wasn't from a Shams or a Woj or a Chris Haynes, just some
But
Cavs.
sure, let's just
Because it fits.
indulge in nonsense.
No, you
It's June 4th.
minutes.
It fits into the salary cap restrictions for both teams. The Cavs need a third big. The Pistons need shooting. In theory, this trade, logically speaking, is something that both teams would at least have a conversation about.
I love
the
when we just
hypothetical
indulge
trade.
in nonsense. It's great.
The hypothetical trade would be a Cavaliers and Pistons trade where Max Strus would go from Cleveland to Detroit and Isaiah Stewart would go from Detroit to Cleveland. The Cavs don't have a third big man. They haven't really had a reliable third big man in the last couple of years in this kind of new core four era plus James Harden. So, Jason, if you were Kobe Altman and Detroit called and said, hey, Isaiah Stewart for Max Strus, salaries line up, 1-for-1, no picks attached, would you do the deal? Your answer would be?
No. The only Cleveland-Detroit trade I'm interested in is for Tarek Q. Scooble. That's it. Not beef stew.
Is his middle name really Q?
No,
Okay.
I'm making
okay.
it. No, I'm not interested in that at all. And Stewart has certainly flashed some moments, and he's on a reasonable contract. And yes, he'd provide another big defensive presence in the front court. But did y'all not realize how much this team missed Max when he was out most of the season? How many times did we sit here, did we do a Cavs show and talk about Max is sort of like that glue guy that holds this thing together, and he's not afraid of the moment. He's had terrific playoff games. He shot the lights out in a couple of those pivotal games against the Pistons. And, he's not a perfect player by any means. But I don't understand the logic in this at all. I would not entertain this for a second.
Yeah, I don't think Max shot it consistently well in the playoffs, but I think the playoffs showed Max's value to this team, right? Energy, defense. When he makes shots, he makes them bunches. No. I understand the thought of that kind of player being something that the Cavs would want if they keep this core or most of this core, but that trade in particular, that's a hard no for me.
The only way I would entertain this deal, I'm also a no for the record, would be if there was a subsequent deal for Jared Allen and or Evan Mobley that was in the works, that was another part of this. But the Cavs have enough issues at the wing. And although they do need a third big, and I like Stewart's physicality, he's a pretty good rim protector. There would never be a question of are the Cavs tough enough again, because that dude is going to be suspended probably 11 games per season for leaving the bench and getting in fights like we saw against Charlotte. But the Cavs have so few wings right now, so few playable wings in the playoffs, and we saw that rotation get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter against the Knicks to the point where at the end of that series, Kenny didn't trust basically anyone outside of Max and Sam in the wing position, that I'm not giving up arguably my best playoff shooter, a guy that has a little bit of creation to his game, brings that crazy frenetic energy that I think the Cavs need for a third big. And I understand why people will look at it and say, well, they need to be tougher, and they didn't lose to the Knicks because they weren't tough enough. They lost to the Knicks, didn't have enough playmaking, didn't have enough shot making, and had an absolute collapse in game one where they didn't call a timeout, they didn't make the requisite changes, and all of that. This deal, I would not make if it was presented to me and I was Kobe Altman. Other deals maybe, but this one I'm out on.
Yeah, ESPN should have started charging people premium times 10 for the trade machine. It would solve a lot of these problems.
ESPN's like the third best trade machine. Spotrac and Fanspo are both way better trade machines.
All right, you're going to need to share those with me because we're going to cook some up, but I don't think we're going to cook this one very far.
We will cook some up. It is my favorite activity of the summer. When you look at the Cavs, though, when we're all in agreement we wouldn't take this deal, they do need a third big at some point. Like, Dean Wade will not be back next season. In the playoffs, Dean Wade was their third big. Mm-hmm. He was the de facto power forward behind Evan and behind Jared Allen. If the Cavs do run it back with the same main core, Allen, Mobley, Harden, and Mitchell, they have to find somebody to be that third big. They need to find somebody to play that role. Jason, if you were, no names, but what kind of third big do you think best fits alongside Allen and Mobley if those are your two starting bigs?
Well, here's where I'm going to contradict myself, because I do think someone like Stewart would fit, but I'm just not paying the price of Max Strus.
Right.
A big defensive guy who can guard multiple spots, who can rebound. The Cavs, for some reason, despite having Mobley and Allen together, just struggle rebounding far more than they should. So I would look for somebody who is a defensive presence who is a rebound machine.
not only is Strus good for you, but he's exactly what Detroit would want. Like, you're making them better.
Yes.
Yeah.
He fits them
Absolutely.
to a T.
Yeah, people are all going to talk about Giannis and Jaylen Brown and all, down the line, right? But like Detroit is a team looking for that with across the league.
They need
can
shot
find a guy
making.
like that for sure.
Yeah.
They need shot making.
Stewart would fit nicely.
Yes.
The Cavs in that third big role, and once again, would not do the Max Strus for Isaiah Stewart deal. But they need someone who could help space the floor. Their rebounding when both bigs are on the court together isn't bad. It should be better, I agree, but I think that's more of the wings than the guards than it is the bigs. But they're like a top 12-ish rebounding team when both bigs are on the court. They're in the bottom 10 percentile when it's only one big.
Yeah.
And that's because when the rebound is a multi-step process. They get beat off the perimeter. Mobley steps up to contest the shot. And everyone else behind him, they have no one there to grab the rebound. Or Allen, I'm just using Mobley as an example. But when that one big steps up to contest, because the perimeter defense is so bad, they're often contesting 6-7 feet away from the basket. That leaves all the offensive rebounds on the back end, which is where they got killed this year. Wade is a decent rebounder, but Wade wasn't a guy battling with Mitchell Robinson on the offensive glass. They need somebody, I think more than anything, who's a legitimate rebounding threat to be alongside Evan and Jarrett. The offensive stuff can come along in its own right, whether it's more of a spacing big, whether it's more of a post-up threat, but they need somebody to be able to help clean up the glass when they're in those one big lineups. They got killed on it last year, and I don't see that being fixed without bringing someone in as that extra big.
Larry Nance didn't do it for you?
No. I thought he was going to be at least a contributor.
I did too.
He gave him nothing.
I thought, now you know why the market was a little thin for him.
Yeah.
This was probably his last year in the NBA.
That makes sense.
He's had a great run.
It's just time.